welcome all to this release webinar on Dynamicweb 9.6, which was released last Tuesday and is one of the usual half-year releases that we have. And I'm looking forward to show you some of the new features that we've added to the platform as part of this release. And of course, you'll just ask questions in the question pane as we go along. Yeah, feel free to ask me anything. So let's get started and take a look at some of the release headlines for this one. We have some improvements for the editors using especially images with the introduction to with image focal points, and also another new feature called color swatches, which makes it more possible to choose colors that are used throughout the websites in the design and the layout based on brand colors. Then we have search for editors, which makes it much easier to configure facets and some of the other new interesting things on the index, makes it possible for regular users to get that up and running. Then we introduce a new analytics and reporting module with this release. It's still in beta, but it's the beginning of a new reporting tool that will utilize some of the data we have in our system. Then there's a lot of new discount features in this part of the release for e-commerce, and also something called a cheat sheet for the discounts to understand what's going on. In PIM, we have a lot of new features on in that part of the platform, so I'll go through that later in the presentation. But first, we'll start with features in the content and marketing part of Dynamicweb. And the first one I'm going to show you is this one that has been requested for a long time. It's finally here. The feature of using image focal points. And an image focal point is a way to control how we scale and crop images in the system. Because as it is today, if we need to crop and resize an image and crop it to another size, if we need to use it as a banner, which is very wide, or if we needed to use the photo on a mobile phone where it's more narrow, the problem is we cannot control what is being cropped and therefore what is being in the center of the image. And focal points are solving that issue. So what you see is the image editor, where you choose an image as you've done always. And you can see there's a small target icon, and that's basically where you set the focal point of the image. And the image handler will then ensure that the image gets cropped, but keeps the focal point in focus in the image. It will not necessarily be in the middle of the image, but it will make sure that it's always in the image. And below you can see a number of different croppings of the same image. On the left side, you can see a stack where we're using the focal points, and on the right side, you can see how the images are cropped without a focal point for various formats. And in the top, we have a high ratio format, and in the next one is a mobile phone format, and in the bottom, we have a banner-sized format of the image. And as we can see on the left side, the moon here will always be central in the image, and on the right side it will be in weird places in some scenarios. So it will greatly improve how images are cropped, especially when we're using it in different formats, as we do in just if we use the image in mobile phones on desktop, and because they are cropped differently. Then we have this color swatch, which is basically a new color selector, and that's what you see on the top. That's the color selector. And the color selector will show us first a number of brand colors that we have defined for the solution. And it will also show us a range of neutral colors, which is basically gray or something toned down colors that we will use for secondary elements on the website. And usually when you're selecting colors throughout Dynamicweb as part of carousels or buttons or whatever, you would have to put in a color code in hex, which is a bit difficult for an editor. So now you have this color selector or this color swatch, and what you can see is if we have a base brand color, still looking at the first small screen dump here, when I click that one, the blue one, I get a number of shades of that color. So instead of just having the 5 that we can see, we actually also have 5 different shades based on that brand color, more dark and more light compared to the one. So we have a lot of more chance of choosing a color that matches without you knowing anything about the color codes. And of course, it's still possible to to set a custom color if that's needed. And to define these color swatches, that's the big screen as you see it. This is where you define your 5 brain colors and your neutral colors, and there are a number of different ways you can define these. Because there's built in some logic into defining these, so you can say you can base the color swatches on an image, and you select an image, and Dynamicweb will find the colors that is part of this image and put them into the brain colors. So you can insert a logo or whatever graphics you have from your corporate visual identity, and Dynamicweb will locate the colors that are most prominent in that graphic. Another way is using other tools like monochromatic color swatches and stuff like that. So there are 5 different algorithms for choosing colors, and you can combine all of them. So, and this is basically how you set up the color swatches, and of course this is an administrative task to do that. In the forms for editors, there are a number of improvements added into this one. First of all, we've introduced a page shift and making it possible to create forms that is now distributed on multiple pages. And of course, to do that is a good idea if you have long forms or surveys or stuff like that. We also introduced a lot of help text and icons in the backend, so you can get an overview of what is missing and what is not missing. Like on the email field, has it been set, and what is the system names, and so on. We added a rich text editor for inserting text into the forms module itself. So you can insert explanations and images and so on directly as part of the form flow. And yeah, let's see. There's also an export now for real Excel in the system, and some other features related to supporting the GDPR compliance that is required nowadays. And then we also have a validation feature that can also be used for display rules, so you can validate the field names that contain the right kind of information, and if a specific field contains the right information, it will show or hide other fields and pages in the form. And that makes it possible to do some more interesting things. I just will have to say that the validation and display rules feature is not in the 9.6 release. It will be out shortly in the final version, but all the other features is out there already. Then we have this search for editors. It's in the content and marketing section because it's basically a platform feature. But in this first version, you will see it only work for product searches. And what it does, it's a configuration that sits on top of the repositories and search and facets, which can do a lot of things, but they are also difficult to configure for a lot of people because they're very dynamic and can do a lot of things. Using this new search for editors configuration of the search system or the Lucene index makes it much easier to do all of this. So what you do is you define which fields should have should be facets, and what kind of facet. Should it be checkboxes or colors or whatever? And then you define if a given field should be part of the free text search, and if you need boosting. And that's basically it. And you also have some other settings depending on what kind of products you want to search. Do you want to search all languages or current language, or what parts of the shops, one or more different product catalogs and stuff like that you cannot see in the screen dumps here. And that makes it much easier to configure all of this, or at least get a high starting point. And what you can do here is also, you can start by configuring some of the things in here, and if the configuration is not enough, there's an export button on top that will export the index files and the query files and the facet definitions, so you can build on top of that. And what this system does is it has dynamic index builder, product schema index extender. So what will be included in index builds and in queries and in facets will be created runtime as we go along. And there's a question, and when we can use this for searching in content items, that's a good question. It will probably be in a release during the spring at some point. We'll create a similar one for searching content. We have this one. You have probably seen this already. Tabs in website settings or in items in general. We use this as part of the Rapido, but technically it's part of the 9.7 release, so it's not necessarily all of you have seen this already. But what we do is you can create an item that is existing of other items, and each of these other items are put on a separate tab, and you can use that for website settings, as I see here. And we do that in Rapido, where we have a lot of settings, but you can also do it now on paragraph items and so on, to group your information in a much easier and more intuitive way. Yes, Jens Jakob, that's true. That was in 9.5.7 and not in 9.7. And this webinar will be fully available afterwards also. So that was another question. And 9.6 also includes a new analytics and reporting tool in an early version. And what it basically does, it replaces the statistics module that we had in Dynamicweb 8, but we've never had on Dynamicweb 9. And this is a new tracking system that tracks all visitors on the website. It also tracks all the views, all products and pages seen. And it also tracks all conversions like submitting forms, downloading files, signing in, adding products to carts, or buying or checking out and stuff like that. And you're going to start to see a lot of reports based on all of this data. So we can say which source type that is creating most conversions in your checkout flows, for example, are they coming from search engines, social media, and campaigns, and so on. So basically, we see a lot of reports that you can also get out of Google Analytics. And this is not to compete with Google Analytics. This is to give an easy overview inside the Dynamicweb of some of the same things. And what we're also going to see on top of all of this is some actions that you can do based on the data that we have in our system directly on pages or checkout flows in terms of optimizations and so on. And all of these reports can be, of course, customized, and you can create your own reporting providers. And you can, of course, add all of these reports to various dashboards throughout the system. So you can get your conversion reports into the e-commerce dashboard, or you can get visitor reports into your home screen dashboards, and so on and so forth. So this is out now. And as I said, it's an early version. You'll see updates in 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now on the reporting part, especially that can do a lot of new things. Switching to e-commerce, we have a lot of improvements on the discount system. And I want to thank you, the community, for a lot of feedback on this one. A lot of the features that we are including in this release of Dynamicweb is coming from especially our American operation, and also from one of the customers here in Denmark, Hummel, who has requested a lot of new features for discounts. So thank you, community, for giving all of this feedback. And one of the first thing you can see here on the screen is the ability to set priority on a discount. That means you can now control in what order they are applied to the order or to products. And what you can also do now with that is you can stop further rules processing. So if you have one discount or many discounts on the order, and one of them is like 40% or 50% on a voucher code, if they get that discount, you don't want to apply any other discounts to the order. So you can do stuff like that. One of the other things that we've done with this one is we split product discounts and order discounts. So product discounts are everything that is applied to products before they are added to cart, and order discounts is, of course, discounts that are applied in the cart itself. And you can use this priority and rules processing for each of these categories. So you can also use that feature on products themselves. And other things, we have a number of limitations on discounts now. So you can give an order discount of 40%, but only on products that hasn't been discounted already. So if they have if you have products that are on sale and they are added to the cart and you're giving a discount on the entire order, you're not discounting the same product twice. Another new feature is to limit the discount amount to a fixed amount. So If you're giving 40%, you can limit it to 500 kroner or $100 or stuff like that. And there's also a new free shipping option here that is replacing the existing one, so you could combine, for example, discount on the entire cart with free shipping if the right free shipping has been chosen. There's also a flag on the shipping methods if they should be free or not. If we have a discount on the order with this flag is set. And we also have, let me see. Yeah, another feature is we can restrict now how many times a discount is being used by each customer. So if a user is logged in, he can only use the discount a certain amount of times, or if you can also apply that to an email address. So customers can only see or use the same discount a limited number of times if it's a voucher and so on. You can also, on the discount list, see a lot of improvements. You have a much better overview of what is the discount value in percent or amount, and you can now also see how much discount has been given, how many times it's been used, and when it was used, and your revenue from your orders based that has this discount available to it. And if you have multiple currencies in your solution, all of this will be calculated back into the default currency of the solution. And you also have some of these numbers in the voucher list coming up in 961. You can actually see the same numbers on vouchers as well. Then we are also introducing this one discount cheat sheet, which is basically just part of the development of this discount feature. But we chose also to deliver this to the partners and to our customers because it gives a very good overview of what is going on in the checkout flow. So there's a lot of numbers in this screen, and the overall goal is, of course, to get an insight of which discounts do we have and how much are they applied, if it is one type or another type of discount, and so on. And you'll also notice there's a number of new numbers available in the checkout flow that we did not have before. So you can now get some subtotals with and without the fees and discounts and so on that wasn't available before this release. Another feature for the e-commerce is some new loyalty point features. So it's now possible to show loyalty point rewards on product lists and in the product details, and also as part of the checkout flow in more places, as you can see in this screen dump. Then we have a number of other improvements for e-commerce. It's now possible to create custom field types. You always have been able to create custom fields now, and the type of fields was something that was defined by the system. So you're limited to 12 or 13 different field types. Now it's possible to create your own field type providers, and we are also going to deliver some new ones as part of this feature. And an example of this can be some field types that can automatically convert data from one unit, as we have in this example, to another unit. So we have the length in inches, and we can auto convert it into the metric system, and can also be weight calculators or anything else. But it's also possible to create field types that are more, much more dynamic or generic. You can create a tag cloud or all kinds of editors that is available for fields that can be edited in the backend. The only limitation is you can only store data in one field at a time if you want to keep inheritance on languages and variants available. And then we also have a number of improvements on the indexes and related to how they are built and also what we're building. It's now also possible to set up on a shop that when you save a product, that product is updated in the index right away automatically, so you don't have to rebuild the index whenever you do changes on products. And we have in 9.5 we released the view engine and the view models. They have been updated quite a bit for this release for using the web APIs and the new product catalog app and in feeds and channels from PIM. So switching to the PIM part of Dynamicweb, there's a lot of features there. But first we have a question from Jens Jakob. We need that auto update on content items too. Yes, that might be a good idea. The first one I'm going to show you on pip is the completeness rules. And completeness rules are a setup where you defined what is required for a product to be complete in a given channel. And a product to be complete could be that it needs images and descriptions and specific fields to be filled out or translated and so on. And we have different requirements depending on what we want to, in what context we're going to use this product. So if we have products that are put into the channel that is used for publishing data into an Amazon, Amazon has some requirements for fields that needs to be filled out. So when you add that product into an Amazon channel, and you browse all your products in the Amazon channel, you can see your completeness in that context of being in the Amazon channel, meaning that we have some specific fields that they need and they need to be filled out, and you should have to do that. And this is throughout the pip system, so different parts of the warehouse will have different completeness rules. And what you do is you create a rule group and define what fields should be in them and what should happen on these files. And this is how it will look. In different places of the system, you'll get these completeness bars, how much or how close is a product to be complete in this context. So, of course, you want to go 100%. And all of this is visualized on the product itself in variance list or in the list of products and so on. In search results, you can see these completeness rules. If you click one of these colored boxes where you can see the completeness of a given product, you get this completion overview where you can see which fields are required and how many has been filled out, how many have been translated and so on. And that will give you an idea of what you're missing as part of being ready to publish the products in the given channel. On top of this, or under this, we're going to get back to that. First, I'm going to show you this, which is a very awesome feature, automatic group-like structures. And what it does is instead of you create groups that you define in a structure yourself and add products into those groups, you can now use properties of the product to group the product, create a hierarchy automatically. And you can do that by set up up to 5 levels of categorization based on the fields on the product itself. So it can be, I want to take a look at the brand as the first categorization, and then I want to take a look at the type of product, or in this, what we see here is we are using different kind of shifter structure on the bikes to group them by. And what happens is when you set up this structure, and you can create as many as you want, you get a new tree out here that is defined by basically values on your products in a given context. And that makes it much easier to build trees, and you don't have to put all the products into a category structure like we usually do in Dynamicweb. So I'm expecting to see a lot more of this. PIM also has received this auditing and history module that will keep track of all changes that we make to any product. And what you can see is an audit trail of a specific product here, or all products actually, that the product was changed and by who, and which product, of course, was changed. And if you click into any of these changes, you can see which fields was changed from what and to what. And that will give you a very good indication of what is basically going on in your solution. And if someone fucks up, you can go back and find it and go say to them, I want Kvaebuyer. You need beers because they fucked up. Stuff like that, making it very visible what changes have been done by who. And this is, of course, for accountability in all of this data. Then we have something called visible fields presets, or it has different names, also called display groups. And what you do here is you define a field group and say that when I choose this one, I want to see these specific fields. And as you can see in the top, in the ribbon bar, you have visible fields, and you choose marketing fields or technical fields. And the view underneath in the multi-edit mode or in the product detail mode will change and include the fields that you've defined on the visible field group. And of course, this makes it much easier to edit products for various situations, depending on what I'm doing right now. Am I creating all the marketing information, or am I filling out all the technical information? I can limit the fields in an easy way or shortcut way using this feature. This feature can also be used in the front end. So instead of displaying fields in the product categories that we also use for editing the products and control things like inheritance and so on, we can now add a virtual layer on top of these fields and say fields from these 3 product categories, I want to show them into this display group. So we can now show them differently than we edit them and make the front end more relevant to how users will see all of this. And then we have some new features on the bulk edits part of PIP. But first, I think we have a question. Inheritance, how? Not sure I understand that. When you create a field, Birgitte, in product categories and so on, you set up how it should inherit on languages and variants. And that is something we use when we're adding information to products. But that's not necessarily the structure we need when we display the values in the front end on the product itself. We might need to group the fields differently. So you don't have bike fields and t-shirt fields, but you have technical fields and other types of fields. And that's what you can do with the display groups. And display groups don't can now handle images as one thing. It's also now possible to create fields that doesn't exist on the products already. So if you want to add an attribute on a product and you don't have it already on the product, you can add it on one or more products using this window. And it's also possible to search across variants instead of just the master product and all variants underneath it. And then we also made a number of performance improvements when you apply this to large search results, or if you have products with a lot of fields underneath it. Working with images, we spent a lot of time, and this is the third go, I think, or the third improvement. So the image selector is now more flexible and intuitive, and it's easier to understand what happens if you select an image on a master product, what happens in terms of languages and variants. And it's also possible to do searches and remember where the selector should be and stuff like that. So basically, we just improved the user experience of working with images. And I'm not sure we're done yet, because there's still some wishes from you out there. So just keep them coming, and we'll see if we can get them into the system. So in terms of inheritance of field values, we have added some also improvements just to the UX of all of this. So it's now easy to see where we have inheritance and the fields cannot be edited. That's the first group here. And under brand details, we can see that we have fields that are inherited into a variant from the master and to a language, but it's possible to override it. So, and you can see the difference. When is it inherited and when it's not? And if you override a value, you can just reset back to being inherited again. So you know the same feature from the content part when you're using language management. The search and filtering and list of products have been improved in various ways. It's now possible to search in other languages than the default, and it's also possible to do searches in variants and get the master shown up in the search result itself. And And as you can see in this situation, because I have the helmet where the search term is only hitting some of the variants, I can see that the master itself is grayed out and some of the variants are grayed out. But this product is shown because 3 of the variants is being hit by the search term. So we can see what is being hit and why a little easier than that we could before, and also being able to search to variants or family products further down the structure with the search. That's it for the PIM system. As you can see, there was a lot of new features related to PIM, and some of these features are also part of the e-commerce itself. So if you only have e-commerce, you also get some of the features. Looking at cloud monitoring, which was a new feature that we introduced with 9.5. The cloud monitoring is for those of you hosting in our cloud. And what it does, it's a system that will monitor anything that happens in your system and log it into an event system. And it's now possible to set up reports on things that should not happen. If you have indexes that fails or schedules that are not running or have exceptions or all kinds of things that should not happen, you can monitor that using this monitoring feature. And in 9.6, we added some more information into the monitoring part. New events are being logged and can be set up in the screens. One example is the indexes. It's now possible to see the health of all the indexes, and I don't have this on screen right now, but you can also see which indexes are live and what instances and so on. All of that can be seen. And what we also do now is that it's possible to set up this monitoring tool to report back to a centralized service here at Dynamicweb. So whenever something happens that should not happen, it will be reported to our service desk, or it can be reported to our service desk, and they will be able to act on this. So then I want to talk to you about some add-ons that you can buy for this monitoring at a later stage during the spring. We're working on this right now. Now we're starting to being able to collect all of this data, and that will basically give us 2 new services that we can offer to customers. And one of them is that our service desk can monitor your solution. So if we define that indexes needs to be up to date and integration needs to run, and if any error happens, it's being reported back to this monitoring service, and we can react from it in our service desk and do something about it, fix the issue and say to you, we fixed this issue and so on. Stuff like that is one of the features we want to do. And we can define in the setup of this what we want to take a look at, so we don't take a look at all things happening, but specific things that we don't want to that we want to ensure is working as it should. Another new feature on top of this is a partner monitoring dashboard. So it's possible to get an overview of all solutions from one partner in one dashboard and see what is the status of all my solutions. Are they live? Do we have any errors? Are integrations running? Is schedules running? Do we have SMTP errors? Do we have template errors or whatever? You can set up a lot of information in these dashboards. And of course, that makes it possible to be proactive in terms of customer satisfaction and so on. So if something starts happening, we can see it right away instead of waiting for the customer to call us and say, this is wrong, we need to fix it. So this is a much better situation to be in, and that's of course opening up for a possibility of creating and selling some add-on services for the monitoring and being proactive on all of this. But more on this later in the spring. On the integration of Dynamicweb 9.6, a lot of things is happening as well, and also generally on the platform. So the first one I'm going to talk to you about is a brand new Dynamicweb integration for NAV, and this is a huge update of the existing NAV integration that includes a lot of new features compared to the old one. And one of the things that we will support for the NAV 2017 and 18 is the structure and attribute feature that was added in those releases. And there's a lot of things being now merged in the batch and live integration also supports a lot of new information as well. So I'm not going to go into big details on this because we're going to have a separate webinar on all the new features on the NAV integration. And it will be released in 2 weeks from now or so. And it supports NAV 2013 to 2018, and it's still FOB files, and it's going through the integration framework 2 that we introduced a year ago, and supporting most of the same requests and responses as we do on the AX version of this. But as I said, more on this later on. And the future of this is the next thing we're going to do is we're going to convert this new version into to the Business Central version and the hosted version of the Business Central, because it requires a different format of all the code units. So that will be coming up from us before summer. And also we have LS Retail, which is very close to second release as well. It should be also within the next 2 weeks. And basically we've added a lot of new features in terms of the first version. And LS Retail is a point of sale system that is being used by a lot of stores. And the LS integration is a unified commerce solution. So you get all the same information from as you get in the store, and all the same offers as you get in stores, and all the same loyalty points as you get in the store in one solution. So this is a Dynamicweb solution that calculates discounts and loyalty points and so on in the LS Retail omni-server system. So you get the exact same experience trading online and offline, and you can create orders online that you pick up in the store, and you can get loyalty points in the store that you use online, and you get a customer center where you can see all your purchases online and offline and stuff like that. So it's a very nice solution, this one, if you have customers on LS Retail or prospects on this. So we have a number of technical improvements. I'm just going to give you a few of them, the most important ones. The Razor engine that is handling all of the templates in Dynamicweb has been updated. It's now Rustlin based and supports C#6, which makes it possible to do a lot of new fun things, like especially the question mark notation, as we have been lagging a lot. And it's now you get some very expressive exceptions that makes it much easier to debug and see exactly what goes wrong, instead of you have an exception somewhere in your template. It's also possible, as you can see in the settings I have on the right side, you can get the template system to throw real .NET exceptions, which makes it easier to secure your solution. There are some requirements related to this, and it's also easier to get all of this information logged in whatever system you're using. And of course, the event system in the cloud monitoring will also log all the template issues. And on top of this, it's also faster. You get better, faster compilation, and a bit. The runtime is more or less the same, but it makes it much better. So that was a few technical improvements. A lot more of that, but you can see that on the list of work items that was part of this release online. So that leaves me with the roadmap, what's coming and what's not coming. And the roadmap is not totally done for 9.7 yet. So I'm not going to give you a real roadmap, but I'm going to give you a direction so you have an idea of what is going to happen. On the PIM side, we are taking another turn on the channels and feeds, and it's going to support a lot of more features as part of that release, and especially how to migrate into different channels, or also supporting PIM in one installation and a Dynamicweb e-commerce in another installation and stuff like that. Another big wish is an easy way of doing import and export. So if you're standing in a list of products or in a product group, you can just import from an Excel sheet or CSV file coming right out of your ERP system. You can do that now, but it's not very easy, and it's basically one of the main features that we're going to develop for PIM and the integration engine itself. And then there's a lot of technical improvements underneath the PIM system that we'll build into the 9.7 release. On the integration, as I said, NAV for Business Central and Azure hosted Business Central The e-commerce provider will be coming out in a new version supporting flat file imports in much better performance than we do today, and being able to take some more, let's say, stupid data and convert it as part of the integration process. And then we're going to add a number of new NAV features on top of the one we released in 2 weeks and the one you get on NAV or the Business Central version of it. On e-commerce, there's a new feature for business to B2A solutions, which is basically business to agents. And the first vertical in this one is fashion. And there's a number of features relating to boxing products and pre-ordering and reordering and stuff like that. And especially how you add products to the cart and multi-buy checkouts and stuff like that multi-add to cart and stuff like that is being part of this release. Now you saw search for editors. We are going to see more on this. And one of the things is new features on search for editor itself, but also the possibility of adding or define facets on your product groups and define which groups should be shown in which facets should be shown in what groups. And there's a lot of requests and wishes from you out there that we hope to implement all of them in this release. And we have a lot of updates on providers because there's a lot of things going on, especially with payments these days. A lot of these vendors are buying each other and they're competing with new types of payments and so on. And that leaves some exciting new features coming up. So you don't even have to type in your name and address, for example, in checkout flows, because you can now use one-click checkouts from some of the new payment gateways and so on. And there's some other things that to be announced on the roadmap for 9.7. So that's it for now. Questions, feel free to ask. And I also want to tell you that in 3 weeks from now, we also have a release on Rapido 3.1 on the February of 26th. And the week after, the first week of March, there's a webinar on all the new features coming in Rapido. And of course, Rapido will implement some of the things you saw here. So the image focal point is one thing, and the color swatch is another thing. And there's a lot of updates to articles and blog posts and stuff like that, and also some business-to-business features in e-commerce. But more on that later. So question time. And there's a question if there's no marketing in the roadmap. There is, but the roadmap is not completely done yet. And because I'm a bit delayed on that part of the process, so there's actually a meeting tomorrow on some of the things that we need to put into the marketing part of the system. That's especially reporting and some things related to email marketing. But Gerard, you're more than welcome to write me, and I'll take a look at your ideas. I still have your sheet from in November that is also part of the meeting tomorrow.